The thing about perfect marriages is, they sound better from across the hedge. Up close, they smell like reheated coffee and awkward silence. Ours was no exception. To the neighbors, Ethan and I were the Foster dream. The neat white house with black shutters, matching SUVs, and a golden retriever named Bailey, who actually listened. Inside, there was the quiet hum of two people living parallel lives and pretending that counted as togetherness. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Ethan liked things in order. His shirts were lined up by color, his watch sat in a velvet box, and his words were always measured. I used to find that admirable, how precise he could be about everything from business investments to barbecue seasoning. Now it just felt like being married to a spreadsheet with hair gel. I worked from the converted office upstairs, which overlooked the cul-de-sac. As a crime journalist, I was used to listening for details people didn't intend to reveal. The way their eyes darted when they lied. The pause between excuses. Funny how I could spot deceit through an interview screen, but missed it at my own dinner table. Or maybe I didn't miss it. Maybe I ignored it because noticing meant change, and change was messy. Ethan's voice floated up from the kitchen one evening, low and persuasive. I leaned back in my chair, half listening. "No, don't worry. It'll be just a few days. Client retreat by the lake. Standard stuff." He laughed, a sound too polished, too performative. "Yeah, wine's on me." Then silence. A long one. I told myself it was work, like he said. Ethan was good at client relationships. He had that blend of charm and authority that made people hand him money just for smiling. But lately, that charm had started to aim elsewhere. Late-night texts, phone flipped upside down, showers lasting longer than my patience. When I asked, he grinned like I'd told a joke. "You're imagining things, Meg. Trust me, it's just business." "Business," I repeated once, later that night while brushing my teeth. The word tasted sour. We were at a charity dinner the following Friday, one of those glossy suburban events with too much perfume and not enough sincerity. I wore a navy dress that Ethan said made me look professional. He wore his confidence like cologne. The table centerpiece cost more than our first month's rent, and the wine flowed like gossip. That's where I saw her. Nicole Hale, younger, tanned, in a silver dress that shimmered under the chandelier. She was the kind of woman who leaned too close when laughing, her hand casually brushing Ethan's sleeve like gravity had a sense of humor. When I asked who she was, Ethan said, "New client liaison, just transferred. Sweet girl." Sweet. The word landed like a mosquito bite, small but irritating. Halfway through dessert, I caught Nicole watching Ethan from across the room. He smiled back, subtle but unmistakable. I turned my gaze to the chocolate mousse in front of me and thought about how a spoon could feel like a weapon if you stared hard enough. Later in the car, I joked, "Should I start wearing silver dresses to staff dinners?" He laughed. "You're being dramatic." That was Ethan's favorite trick, turn suspicion into comedy. It worked better than honesty. Over the next week, the pattern repeated. Late nights, new cologne, extra phone calls. I'd hear his voice through the door, soft, amused, never with me. When I asked, he'd stretch his arms, yawn, and say, "Just catching up on reports, babe." I didn't argue. Not yet. Instead, I stored every detail like a file on my mental desktop. Call duration, tone, timing. Old habits die hard. Once a journalist, always an investigator. It happened on a Thursday night. Ethan was in the shower. I was scrolling through emails when his tablet buzzed on the nightstand. We'd synced accounts years ago when we still believed in transparency. The preview of a message flashed across the screen. My eyes caught it before I could look away. Can't wait for the weekend, the cabin, wine, and that pink lace. I sat perfectly still. The only sound was the water running. Pink lace. The words replayed like a broken headline banner. My mind didn't rush to anger. It calculated dates, times, patterns. Business trip this weekend. The lake, the cabin, everything fit. I closed the tablet before the message disappeared and stared at the perfectly folded comforter on our bed. It looked like a crime scene where the weapon was charm. When Ethan stepped out of the bathroom, wrapped in his gray towel, he smiled. "You look miles away." "Just thinking about a story," I said. Not a lie, technically. "Big one?" "Potentially career-defining," I said, meeting his eyes. He didn't notice the double meaning. He kissed my forehead, steam still clinging to his skin, and said, "I'll miss you this weekend." "Sure you will." I smiled because sarcasm is a better disguise than tears. That night I lay awake, listening to his even breathing. My mind buzzed like a newsroom. I could already see the plan forming. The lake house, the setup, the confrontation. Not shouting, not violence, something cleaner, sharper. Ethan had taught me to value presentation. I intended to deliver. The next morning, he packed neatly, always the efficient traveler. "Client retreat," he said, tucking his tie into his case. "Won't be long." "Bring me a souvenir," I said, voice flat as glass. He winked. "What do you want?" "Surprise me." He laughed, kissed my cheek, and left. The front door clicked shut with the finality of a chapter break. The moment his car disappeared down the street, I moved. Years of reporting had trained me for quiet efficiency. I gathered my keys, camera, small recorder, and notepad. My hands didn't shake. If anything, I felt steadier than I had in months. There's a strange clarity that comes when you decide to stop pretending. Bailey watched me from the doorway, tail thumping uncertainly. "Guard the house, partner," I said, patting his head. He tilted it, as if suspicious too. Smart dog. The drive to the lake was long enough to think, but short enough to act. The sky was the color of brushed steel, the kind that promises rain, but never delivers. I pulled up the cabin listing on my phone. It was under a client's name, but Ethan's email confirmed the booking. Neat, predictable. When I reached the lake, it was quiet, off-season. The cabin sat by the water like a secret someone forgot to bury. I let myself in with the spare key Ethan had once bragged about hiding under a rock. "Nobody would ever think to look here," he'd said. He really should have known better. Inside, the place smelled of cedar and stale promises. I moved through it carefully, noting the wine glasses on the counter, the deck facing the water, the faint reflection of myself in the window. I imagined them laughing here, clinking glasses, whispering. The image didn't hurt as much as it motivated. I set the scene. 2 glasses of red on the table, soft lighting from a floor lamp, curtains drawn. Romantic enough to sting. Then I positioned my small camera on a shelf, aimed toward the door, habitual precision. My work had taught me that truth looks best on video. When I was done, I stepped outside to the deck. The lake rippled under a thin breeze. I could almost hear the neighborhood back home, mowers, gossip, the polite chaos of suburbia. All those women who smiled at me while wondering if I'd gained weight or lost control. They'd have quite the story soon. Megan Foster, the quiet journalist who turned her marriage into front-page drama. My phone buzzed. A message from Diana Cross, my ex-friend turned occasional source of entertainment. "You heard? Nicole from Ethan's office is going on a retreat this weekend. Must be nice." I typed back, "I'm sure it'll be unforgettable." Then I deleted the conversation. Some things didn't need witnesses. As I drove back into town for supplies, candles, fresh flowers, a new dress, I rehearsed lines in my head. I wasn't planning a meltdown. I wanted control, the kind that makes people uneasy. Ethan thrived on control. Taking it back would be poetic. At the grocery store, the cashier asked if I was hosting something. "Something like that," I said. She smiled, scanning the wine bottles. "Celebration?" I paused, then smiled back. Sort of. Back home, the neighborhood was as immaculate as ever. Jennifer Hale was trimming her roses across the street, pretending not to glance my way. Diana's husband was washing his car again, 4th time this week. Everyone's so busy polishing appearances. It almost made me nostalgic for sincerity. That evening, I sat in my office going over my notes. I'd covered affairs before: politicians, executives, the occasional influencer scandal. They all shared the same flaw: arrogance. People cheat because they think they can manage 2 realities at once, but every story ends when one reality leaks into the other. Ethan's leak just happened to text it. When he called that night, I answered on the 3rd ring. "Hey, you," he said, cheerful, relaxed. I could hear traffic, maybe the start of his little getaway. "Hey," I said evenly. "All set for your client retreat?" "Yeah. I'll probably have bad reception, so don't worry if you don't hear from me." "Wouldn't dream of it." He chuckled. "Miss me already?" "Every minute," I said, matching his tone. He didn't notice the layer beneath it. After the call, I stared at my reflection in the dark window. My face looked calm, detached, like someone observing herself through glass. I'd written about vengeance before, how it consumes, how it twists. But this felt different. This wasn't destruction for pleasure. It was balance, justice without a courtroom. I opened my notebook and began to write. Operation Pinklace. Underneath I listed 1. Timing of arrival, 2. Camera placement, 3. Dialogue rehearsal, 4. Backup evidence, receipts, messages, photos, 5. The line, "The wine's ready, so is the payback." I repeated it quietly, testing how it would sound. Calm, measured, effective, like a headline with perfect rhythm. The next day passed in quiet efficiency. I checked into a motel not far from the lake house, prepped the setup again, and waited. Every so often, I'd glance at the mirror and barely recognize myself. There was something steadier in my eyes now. Resolve, maybe. Or the kind of stillness that comes before a storm. By Saturday evening, I was back at the cabin. Everything was ready. The table set, the lights dimmed, the wine breathing patiently. I poured a glass, took a small sip, and smiled. It tasted like closure. I imagined their arrival, laughter at the door, his hand on her waist, her perfume filling the air. They'd expect intimacy, privacy, indulgence. Instead, they'd find me, and I'd find something better than forgiveness. As the sun slipped behind the trees, I glanced at my watch. Any minute now, the show would start. I wasn't nervous. Reporters aren't nervous before the truth. They're just ready. For years, I'd written about other people's downfalls. This time, I was writing my own. Only the headline would be sharper. I thought about all those glossy dinner parties, the perfect smiles, the fake sympathy. Tomorrow, there'd be whispers, maybe gasps. "Did you hear what Megan did?" And someone else would answer, "Well, he had it coming." The night deepened, and the lake reflected the last light like a secret it promised to keep. I set my glass down, checked the camera angle one last time, and waited. When the crunch of tires finally echoed from the gravel road, I felt the faintest flicker of satisfaction. This wasn't the story I wanted to write, but it was the one that deserved to be told. The tires on their gravel road were still whispering in my ears when I drove back to town with the quiet satisfaction of someone who'd set a table and placed every fork correctly. Sunday would bring the big show. Saturday, however, was for information. The careful, courteous kind that never met a warrant. I'm a reporter. I don't need to break in when people prop doors for me with their own vanity. Morning came with a pale sky and the sight of our neighborhood pretending it didn't observe anything. Sprinklers clicked. A teenager skateboarded past with the bored grace of a cat. Across the street, Jennifer Hale trimmed roses like she was auditioning for a garden magazine. She lifted a hand, that delicate, almost wave suburban women master when they want you to see their nails and their restraint at the same time. I waved back and loaded my camera bag into the passenger seat. Bailey nudged my knee. "You're on security detail," I told him. He sighed in the dramatic way only dogs and certain husbands manage. First stop, downtown yoga. Nicole's class started at 9. I'd checked the studio's schedule, public information, no cloak and dagger nonsense required. The studio sat above a juice bar that pretended fruit could change your life. The lemon ginger posters promised clarity and probably gas. I parked where I could see the glass doors and waited. Waiting is half of investigation. You learn patience from it, the art of watching people reveal themselves by simply existing. At 9:52, she emerged, skin glowing, ponytail bouncing like a commercial. She wore a pale blue hoodie and leggings that announced both success and thirst for more of it. She paused to chat with a woman in neon sneakers, laughed too loudly, and checked her phone with a little smile. The kind of smile women make when they think they've outplayed another woman. Nice try. She headed to the garage. I slipped from my car, keeping a healthy distance as any reasonable citizen would. The garage air was cool and smelled of rubber and damp concrete. Doors slammed. A baby cried somewhere. My steps matched hers, quiet and unhurried. She hit the fob of a pearl-white coupe that probably had a monthly payment equal to my high school car's total value. "Nicole," I called, friendly as a neighbor returning a casserole dish. She froze, glanced back, and pasted on a polite smile. "Yes?" "I loved your class," I said. "I've been thinking of joining." A small truth. I had tried yoga once for a story. I discovered my hamstrings have the personality of antique piano wires. "That's great," she said, angling her body so the car door shielded her like a shiny crescent. "We always welcome beginners." "Just one quick question." I smiled with just enough teeth to suggest community spirit. "How do you find time with your busy job at Foster & Hale?" She blinked. The new name slid off my tongue too easily, but she'd been waiting to hear it out loud. It fit her like that silver dress had fit her at the gala. Too much, too soon. "Oh, it's just Hale & Partners," she said, adjusting the hoodie zipper. "I'm a liaison, lots of scheduling." "Scheduling," I repeated, savoring it. "You must be amazing at calendars." She laughed, relaxed. "My friends call me the planner. It's a curse." There it was, the idea of herself she wanted the town to buy. Efficient, important, a little adorable. "Have a great day," she added, getting into her car. The door closed with the hush of luxury. She drove out with a careful hands 10 and 2 precision that probably drove parking valets insane. I followed at an unambitious distance, letting a delivery van slip between us. She stopped at a cafe with gray walls and tiny succulents pretending to be trees. I parked across the street, bought a coffee strong enough to stand on its own, and took a window seat. When Nicole sat down with her latte and her laptop, I began my favorite suburban sport, reading lips. Journalists learn fast. Most people underestimate glass. They think windows are mirrors that protect them, not screens that reveal both sides. Nicole typed, paused, smiled at her phone, typed again. A man in a golf jacket joined her. He wasn't Ethan. He had the look of someone who upgrades his clubs every season and cries a little when a ball hits the rough. They talked in low tones. I didn't need to hear the words to understand the cadence. Favors, introductions, promises disguised as opportunities. The golf jacket left. She sat there, messaging, scrolling, messaging. I snapped a photo of the screen only when the reflection from the cafe light was too clear and the angle safe. Nothing invasive, nothing illegal, just a simple observation framed by public space. The phone case read, "Make your own luck." Cute. I made a note on a receipt. Luck. Curated. Love's optics. By the time she left, the day had warmed into that late morning shine that makes small towns look like postcards. I followed her to a boutique where hangers clicked like gossiping teeth. She tried on a cardigan, then a dress, then a look that said, "I deserve this." I wandered 2 storefronts down to Diana Cross's art gallery, where paintings that looked like expensive thunderstorms hung under minimalist lights. Diana saw me and lifted her eyebrows like stage curtains. "Megan," she sang, "you're out." "Not in pajamas, so yes," I said. Diana had been my friend before she discovered social climbing is easier without a journalist holding your rope and asking where it's tied. She leaned against the counter, all earrings and intention. "I saw Ethan's car last night. Late." "Late as in suspicious or late as in you own binoculars?" I asked. "Please, I simply appreciate patterns," she said, which was suburban for binoculars and a memory palace. "Is everything okay?" "Fantastic," I said lightly. "I'm researching." My tone made it sound like I was writing a piece on heirloom tomatoes. "Any exciting news?" Her eyes sharpened. Gossip is currency, and I had just opened a bank. "Well," she said, dropping her voice, "someone told me Nicole is joining a retreat this weekend. Wellness, I think. At a lake." "How mindful," I murmured. "People are always finding themselves at lakes," Diana said, flipping a brochure, "as if water can wash away habits." A quick glance at my left hand. My ring reflected the gallery lights with a cheerful ignorance that annoyed me. "You should come to the fundraiser tomorrow," she went on. "We're screening a short film on local philanthropy. Lots of faces. You know how we love faces." "I do," I said. "Faces are where lies get lazy." "I'll see if I can stop by." Back in my car, I made 2 lists, one titled Nicole and one titled Ethan. Under Nicole, I wrote, "Public ambition, soft voice, careful Instagram, performing gratitude." Under Ethan, "Precise, neat, compartmentalizes, assumes I adore him." I stared at the lists until they blurred into one shared trait. They like mirrors. Perfect. Afternoon, Ethan's office. Not to sneak around. I had no interest in duplicating the old me who'd once climbed a fence for a quote and torn a favorite coat. This was about seeing patterns with my own eyes, not rummaging for treasure. People reveal themselves in their professional habitats. Offices are stage sets with staplers. Foster Advisory occupied the 3rd floor of a tasteful building that pretended money doesn't like attention. The lobby smelled like citrus and achievement. I walked in with a press badge clipped to my jacket, real but irrelevant. The receptionist smiled, the way you do at delivery drivers and lawmakers. "Welcome. Do you have an appointment?" "I'm here to drop off something for Ethan Foster," I said. "Personal." Which was as true as a legal disclaimer. "Of course," she said, "because personal is the passcode for most desks." She gestured toward a small lounge. "You can wait here while I see if he's available." "That's sweet, but I don't want to interrupt. Could I leave this?" I held up an envelope with an empty card inside. Props work best when they hold only possibility. She nodded and took it with the careful hand of someone who treats mail like it might explode into feelings. While she walked to the back hall, I sat in the lounge with my phone and the reflection in a framed certificate across from me. Reflections are polite informants. They tell you only what they can see. I saw movement in the hallway, a glimpse of Ethan in his tidy blue shirt, the way he touched the back of his hair when he felt observed. He didn't look toward the lounge. He looked at the receptionist, smiled, and took the envelope as if accepting an award for most believable husband. I left before the receptionist returned. There are advantages to letting people wonder why you arrived at all. Outside, I texted Diana a thank you for the fundraiser reminder and then searched public filings related to property rentals around the lake. No hacking, no locked doors, just databases and patience. The cabin I'd toured belonged to a management company with a cheerful name and a bland website. Renting it under a client was a paper trick anyone could do with a credit card and a story. I saved the reservation page screenshot with dates. Again, public. If a lie trips on a curb, you don't need to push it. On my way home, I drove past Nicole's condo building, a cheerful stack of rectangles with balconies where residents displayed their purchased personalities. A bike, a succulent farm, a hammock that probably held more cocktails than naps. I parked on the street, watched for 5 minutes that became 15, then 40. A delivery car dropped off a bag of takeout for Unit 5B. The driver left. A minute later, the same driver returned, checking his phone, confused. He had misread the order. People get things wrong. It's almost freeing. At 5:20, I saw Nicole pull into the garage. I didn't have to enter to know where she'd park. She liked corners, little angles of privacy. I waited another beat, then walked to the side entrance that opened to the pedestrian path near the garage exit. It was wide open. People love convenience more than safety. She emerged in a crisp ivory trench, carrying 2 shopping bags like evidence of success. I leaned against the wall. "Nice coat," I said. She started, then composed herself. "Oh, hi." Smile with the edges filed smooth. "You're headed out?" I said. "Dinner with friends," she said. She launched the words like a boat and prayed it would float. "I just came from Ethan's office," I said casually, inspecting my nails. Dropped off a card. Something flickered, then resumed the planned program. "That's sweet of you." "I'm famous for it." I stepped closer, just enough to share air, not enough to break laws or common courtesy. "Tomorrow's a big day for him. All that rest by the lake will be restorative." She swallowed. It was tiny, but I didn't miss it. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Of course you are," I said, and smiled, because that's what women do when we're supposed to be harmless. "Here's the thing, be smart with your choices. Hide them better. Take it from a professional." Her pulse showed at her throat like a small drum. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm offering advice," I said. "Also, your back right tire is a little low." She glanced instinctively. When her eyes flicked down, I reached past her to the wall switch for the garage light. It clicked off, and we stood in a brief wash of dimness. She gasped, a soft intake. I turned it on again and leaned back. "See? Everything can change in a second. In case you're wondering, I prefer a well-lit stage." She exhaled. "You're intense." "I'm thorough," I said. "I get paid for it." She walked away stiffly, chin high, steps too measured. It's easy to look composed until you realize someone else choreographed the scene. I returned to my car and let my hands rest on the steering wheel, the cool leather grounding me. The part of me that once admired Ethan's neatness now appreciated my own. Nothing illegal, nothing you could call dramatic if you weren't the type to faint at a spicy comment. Just a small reminder that stories have angles and cameras prefer light. By evening, our neighborhood tilted into golden hour. Lawns shone with that quite too perfect gloss. I made a simple dinner, roasted vegetables, grilled chicken, and ate it standing at the counter like a person between tasks. I thought about the weekend to come, my stage at the lake, the choreography of humiliation. Not rage. I didn't want yelling or flying objects. I wanted accuracy. Ethan called around 8. "Hey you," he said, voice relaxed. Music drifted in faintly, something acoustic and expensive. "Just checking in." "How's the retreat?" I asked. "Productive," he said easily. "Beautiful view. You'd love it up here." "I might," I said. "Have a good night." "You too," he said, and lowering his voice like a conspirator added, "I miss you." I said, which is the universal syllable for "do you," though. After the call, I packed a small overnight bag. Comfortable shoes, a dark sweater, a dress that made me look like a person who could either hug you or end your newsletter subscription with a smile. I added my spare recorder and a fresh notebook. Then I checked the camera batteries twice because the difference between memory and proof is often 90 minutes of charge. Before bed, I walked Bailey to the corner and back. The air smelled like wet grass and new secrets. Diana's porch light flicked on. A curtain in a third-floor window shifted. Somewhere, a grill hissed. The town looked calm, but it hummed with the same energy I felt. Anticipation, the good kind of nervous you get before an honest conversation or a well-earned storm. Sunday morning rose clean and bright, like someone had wiped the sky with a glass cloth. I left early. The road to the lake unwound in a ribbon, the trees holding out branches like ushers. At a gas station 30 minutes out, I saw a familiar vehicle 2 pumps over, Ethan's SUV, tidy, smug. He stood by the windshield with a squeegee like a man preparing for a parade. For a second, his eyes drifted across the parking area. I dropped my gaze to a paper map on my lap like a tourist who still trusts paper. He looked past me, uninterested. Of course he did. I was part of the scenery. Back at the cabin, the air had that bright chill that makes you feel sharper than you really are. I checked my setup. Camera in place, a second audio recorder hidden under the woven runner on the table. Again, legal in our state for one-party recording, and the one party here would be me. No sleight of hand, just a safety net in case the camera glitched. I'd learned early in my career that technology senses tension and chooses that moment to take a nap. I rehearsed my line. The wine's ready, so is the payback. I tried it bored, I tried it amused, I tried it level 1. At 11, I drove to a turnout half a mile away and waited, engine off. The lake lay still as glassware. A heron stood absurdly elegant near a reed bed, ignoring me completely. I sipped coffee and counted the slow ticks of my watch. Their car appeared just after noon. Ethan was driving. Nicole wore sunglasses and the kind of smile women practice in reflective surfaces. They rolled past, laughing at something tiny and private. I waited 1 more minute, then followed at a lazy distance, careful not to make dust jump. Their vehicle turned into the gravel drive. The cabin greeted them with all the charm of a set designed for confession. I parked behind a screen of evergreens, smoothed my dress, and walked the path to the back deck. The sliding door was exactly where we'd left it yesterday, locked from habit, but the front door would be open for theatrics. I slipped inside. From the kitchen I heard them at the front, a burst of noise, their joy at being welcome in a place that didn't belong to them. I stepped into the doorway when they crossed the threshold. "The wine's ready," I said, level, smooth. Then I let a smile rise, small and sharp. "So is the payback." Nicole gasped and stepped backward so quickly her heel caught the rug. Ethan froze like a man who's discovered the ocean has opinions. His face rearranged itself from pleasure to calculation in the space of a blink. "Megan," he said, producing my name like a magic trick that malfunctioned. "What are you—" "Hosting," I said, and gestured to the beautifully set table. "You said you wanted a retreat. I brought exactly what we needed, truth and a decent Pinot." Nicole looked between us, hand fumbling for her purse strap. "I should go," she said, voice high. "No," Ethan said quickly. "You don't need to—" "Yes, you do," I said, gentler than he deserved. "The adults are having a conversation." She stared at me, then at him, then at the door, and then made a decision I both respected and predicted. She left, fast, in heels that weren't built for gravel, muttering something that sounded like an apology to charm itself. The door thudded shut behind her. For a long beat, Ethan and I stood with the lake holding us quiet. He opened his mouth. I lifted a hand. "Don't." He shut it. Smart. "You like performance?" I said. "I made a stage. Sit." He sat. Good posture, hands on his knees like a kid at a recital. I took the chair opposite and poured 2 glasses. "To honesty," I said. He didn't pick up his. I sipped mine. The camera hummed in the corner, invisible as air. "You've misunderstood," he began. "I'm a professional understander," I said. You underestimate me because I make coffee and listen. Let me help you. This is not about begging or bargaining. This is about me finally speaking without being told I'm dramatic. Color shifted along his neck. He inhaled. We're going through a rough patch. We're not going through anything, I said. You walked around me while humming. He put both hands flat on the table as if it might steady the world. I never meant to hurt you. No one ever does, I said. They mean to enjoy themselves and hope the cleanup crew wears their shirt size. Outside, a gull cried. In the distance, a motorboat grumbled. Inside, we sat in a small, perfect storm of accuracy. For the first time in years, I felt exactly like myself. Observant, sharp, unwilling to soften the angle for someone who preferred roundness. He tried again. It was a mistake. The weekend, I said, or the months of planning required to create it. When he didn't answer, I reached down, pulled one photo from a small folder, and slid it across the table. A simple shot of a receipt with 2 wine glasses and a note scribbled on a napkin. Next time, the lake, public place, public receipt. Nothing covert. Just the way ordinary life keeps records of itself when no one thinks to hide. His face went tight around the eyes. You've been spying on me. I've been watching you in the places everyone can see, I said. You should try it. He leaned back, gaze flicking to the doorway, maybe to the idea of Nicole running away. What do you want? The simplest question, the hardest answer. I allowed myself the truth. I want you to feel the way you made me feel, small, sidelined, like furniture that holds up other people's glassware. I also want you to understand that I can rewrite a story more efficiently than you can tell one. He stared, then dropped his eyes to the untouched wine. You won't do anything rash. Rash is for teenagers and sales racks, I said. I'm very precise. He swallowed, throat moving. The old me would have softened at that. The me at this table let the silence do the lifting. He broke first. Are you leaving me? I'm arriving, I said, and stood. And I'm just getting started. The floor lamp ticked, as if agreeing. He watched me walk toward the door, probably expecting me to turn back and throw something. Wine, words, myself. I didn't. I paused with my hand on the knob and delivered the line I'd rehearsed in the mirror of our careful house. Enjoy your retreat, Ethan. I hope you find the view clarifying. I stepped out into the bright, clean air, my heart steady, my mind a crisp list. The gravel whispered under my shoes. Somewhere down the road, Nicole's car started, a quick, panicked hum. I didn't look. I had other plans. On the drive back toward town, the sky opened in that soft way that says weather systems are more polite here than in the city. I passed a family unloading fishing gear, a jogger, a couple arguing quietly beside a map. Life went on, unconcerned by our small theater. Halfway home, I pulled into a turnout and let out a breath I hadn't noticed I was holding. Not the dramatic movie kind, more like the long exhale after you straighten a crooked picture. My phone buzzed with a text from Diana. Reminder, fundraiser tonight at 7. Big turnout. I smiled. Perfect stage for the next cue. I typed back, wouldn't miss it. Then I added, almost as an afterthought, save me a seat with a good view of the faces. Sunday night arrived with that peculiar calm that settles over suburbia when everyone pretends to rest. Lawn lights flickered on in perfect order, and somewhere in the distance, a sprinkler hissed like a tired sigh. I parked in our driveway just before dusk, keeping my headlights off for no reason other than instinct. The house stood waiting, same white siding, same black shutters, same illusion of peace. Bailey greeted me at the door, tail swishing, ears perked as if to ask whether I'd found what I was looking for. Not yet, I told him, rubbing the soft fur behind his neck. But soon. Inside, the air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and distance. Ethan had always insisted on weekend cleaning services. He liked things sterile, like emotion could be scrubbed out with disinfectant. The thought made me grin, which probably said something about where my sanity was headed. I poured myself a glass of water, sat at the kitchen island, and laid out my notes. Names, dates, habits. I wasn't just planning revenge, I was constructing a feature piece. Anatomy of betrayal, a case study in arrogance. If it ever saw print, I'd change the names, but keep the truth intact. On my laptop, I pulled up the video feed from the lake house camera. Ethan sat where I'd left him, shoulders slumped, staring at the untouched glass of wine. He stayed like that for 15 minutes before standing, looking around as if the walls might answer for him. When he finally walked out of frame, I closed the window. I didn't need to watch more. I already had everything I needed: the tone, the reaction, the proof that guilt doesn't need witnesses. It eats quietly. I didn't sleep. Instead, I mapped my next moves. I had a story to write, but also an ending to orchestrate. Ethan's social world was a web of perception: colleagues, clients, the neighborhood. If I tugged at the right threads, it would all tremble. Monday morning, I woke early, made coffee, and started writing emails. Not the kind you send, just drafts. I composed polite notes to certain people, one to his firm's silent partner asking about the internal client concerns regarding misrepresentation, another to the head of their golf club board referencing unprofessional behavior toward staff. Nothing false, nothing actionable, just precise enough to plant a seed. I'd decide later if I needed to water it. By noon, I drove downtown to the paper's office. My editor, Mark, waved as I passed his desk. "You look wired," he said. "Research project," I answered. "Personal interest." "Sounds ominous," he chuckled. "Just suburban sociology," I said. "The study of facades." He didn't ask further. Journalists learn not to probe their own kind unless they want an essay in response. After work, I met Diana at a cafe near the square. She'd texted, "Heard rumors about Ethan's retreat. Care to spill?" Translation: she wanted gossip, not concern. When I arrived, she was already stirring her iced latte with the focus of a scientist. "You look radiant," she said, which in Diana's language meant, "You're hiding something delicious." "I reorganized my priorities," I said, taking a seat. "Always refreshing," she said, leaning in. "So tell me, is Ethan's new project keeping him busy?" I smiled. Busy is one word. Distracted might be another. Her eyes gleamed. "Oh, that sounds promising." "You'll see soon enough," I said, taking a sip of coffee. "You're going to the gala Friday, right?" "Of course. It's the event of the month. Everyone who matters will be there." "Perfect," I said softly. "I'm planning a surprise." Diana's grin faltered slightly, unsure whether I was joking. "You sound dangerous, Megan." "I sound awake," I said, gathering my things. "It's a new hobby." That evening, I called Ethan. He didn't pick up at first. When he did, his voice was careful. "Megan, busy week?" I asked, tone polite. "Very," he said. "I wanted to talk." "About what?" "The weather at the lake." He sighed. "I made a mistake." "I'll give you that," I said. "It's the most accurate thing you've said in months. I want to fix this." "Then fix yourself first," I replied, and hung up. For the next 2 days, I played my role. I went to work, smiled at neighbors, watered the plants. Normalcy is a brilliant disguise. Underneath it, I built momentum. I printed selected stills from the cabin footage. Nothing intimate, just enough implication. Ethan and Nicole arriving, her hand brushing his expression when he saw me. No captions, no explanations, just images that told their own story. Thursday night, I dropped an unmarked envelope into Diana's mailbox. Inside, one of those stills. No note. By morning, she'd show it to someone in confidence, and by afternoon, half the cul-de-sac would know. Suburbia runs on whispers, not engines. By Friday, the air around me buzzed. At the grocery store, Mrs. Larkin gave me a sympathetic smile she hadn't earned the right to use. A neighbor across the street waved a little too eagerly. People didn't know details yet, but they sensed scandal. It's an instinct embedded in the HOA DNA. That evening I dressed for the gala. Black dress, minimal jewelry, the expression of a woman who has nothing to prove. When I arrived at the country club, the parking lot shimmered with cars that cost more than marriages. Inside, the air smelled of perfume and ambition. Ethan was there already, standing near the bar, laughing with colleagues. He looked polished, confident, unaware that the floor beneath him had started to give way. Diana intercepted me near the buffet. "You look stunning," she whispered. "And you didn't tell me about that photo." I tilted my head. "What photo?" She smirked. "Don't play coy. It's all over town. Poor Nicole left work early today. Ethan must be furious." "I wouldn't worry," I said. "He's always been good at hiding emotion." She studied me, half impressed, half cautious. "Whatever you're planning tonight, make sure it's worth it." "Oh," I said, eyes drifting toward the stage where the event organizer was adjusting the microphone. "It will be." Halfway through the speeches, I slipped backstage. Years of covering press events taught me where cords ran and laptops waited. I located the projection computer easily. It was queued with a slideshow of sponsors and donor names. I inserted my own flash drive, preloaded with one file titled Community Spotlight, Integrity. Just a minute-long clip, silent, simple, impossible to misinterpret. When the lights dimmed for the scheduled presentation, I stood by the side door, champagne flute in hand. The first few images flashed, smiling faces, charity volunteers. Then my video replaced them. Ethan and Nicole entering the cabin, her laugh, his hand on the door. Then the frame of me stepping out, calm, collected, saying, "The wine's ready. So is the payback." Gasps rippled through the room like a dropped tray of glasses. The video ended before anything explicit, cutting to a simple white slide. Some stories write themselves. I slipped out before the lights came up. Behind me, voices collided, whispers, confusion, shock. The kind of noise that can unmake reputations faster than any confession. Outside, the night air felt cleaner. My hands didn't shake, my breathing was even. Revenge, it turned out, could be elegant. When I reached my car, my phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. "What did you do?" I typed back. "I published the truth." Then I blocked his number. As I drove home, I passed Diana's car, heading the opposite way. She'd have the story by morning. By Monday, everyone would. That's the beauty of small towns. They recycle gossip like religion. Back in my driveway, I turned off the engine and sat for a moment, watching the porch light glow across the perfect lawn. Bailey barked softly inside, sensing me. I whispered, "It's over," though I knew it wasn't. Not yet. There were still embers to stir. I went inside, kicked off my shoes, and poured a drink. The phone rang twice before I realized it wasn't blocked numbers. It was Mark, my editor. "Hey, Meg," he said. "That piece you mentioned, the suburban sociology one, still writing it?" "Always," I said. "Well, I've got an opening in next month's issue. Think you can make it work?" I smiled. "You have no idea." When I hung up, I looked around our spotless kitchen. Ethan's favorite mug sat by the sink, the one that said, "World's Best Advisor." I picked it up, turned it over in my hand, then set it gently in the trash. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet again, pretending nothing ever happened. But I could feel it. The shift, the subtle tremor under all that manicured calm. For the first time in months, I wasn't guessing. I was writing the story, line by line, and every word belonged to me. Saturday morning arrived with sunshine that felt staged, too golden, too polite. The kind of morning that pretends nothing bad has ever happened behind white doors. From my kitchen window, the neighborhood looked perfect again. Mowed lawns, trimmed hedges, cars gleaming in driveways like trophies. If someone told you that last night's gala ended with half the guests whispering into their martinis, you'd never believe it. I stirred my coffee slowly, the spoon clinking against the mug. Bailey watched me with that dog wisdom that always seemed to ask, was it worth it? I gave him a small smile. You can't fact-check satisfaction, buddy. The doorbell rang. When I opened it, Diana stood there, oversized sunglasses, phone in hand, excitement radiating off her like static. You caused a civil war, she whispered, pushing past me before I could respond. Do you have any idea what's happening? I assume the usual, rumors, theories, denials, I said. She removed her glasses. Ethan walked out before dessert. Nicole didn't even show up. Half the board thinks there's going to be a scandal at his firm. Oh, and Jennifer Hale called me at dawn because her daughter's crying in a hotel somewhere. I feigned mild interest. That's unfortunate. Diana stared. You're enjoying this. I'm observing, I said. Big difference. She sank into a chair at the counter. You're terrifying, you know that? People always think revenge means screaming or throwing things, but you... She gestured at me. You just light a match and watch from a distance. I'm a journalist, I said. Observation is part of the craft. She grinned, uneasy. So what's next? Because I can tell this isn't over. I took a sip of coffee, letting the moment breathe. Next, I said, I make sure the story sticks. By noon, the internet had done my work for me. Someone, probably Diana, had leaked a few stills from the gala footage. Ethan's firm's website was conveniently under maintenance. Nicole's social media went dark. Every suburban timeline within 10 miles was buzzing with the same words, the video. I drove to the grocery store around 3 just to watch reactions. A woman in the produce aisle whispered to her friend, You saw it, right? That lake place? Another near the deli muttered, I always knew he was too charming. I passed them with my basket, invisible and present all at once. There's power in anonymity when everyone knows your story, but doesn't realize it's yours. As I loaded groceries into my trunk, my phone vibrated. Unknown number. I answered. Ethan. Megan. His voice was strained, clipped. We need to talk. Do we? You've ruined me. No, I said calmly. You ruined yourself. I just provided better lighting. He exhaled sharply. This isn't you. You don't get to decide who I am anymore, I said, but you'll have plenty of time to figure it out. Megan, please. Don't beg. It doesn't suit you. I hung up. For a moment I stood there, letting the silence settle. I wasn't shaking, but my pulse hummed like the soft vibration of an engine. Not from fear, from energy. The kind that comes after you push through a wall you were told was solid. That evening, I received an email from an anonymous address. Subject line, You think you won? No message body, just an attachment. Against better judgment, I opened it. A photo of my house, taken from across the street. I stared at it, expressionless. Then I smiled. Finally, I said aloud. He's learning tension. Still, caution is a journalist's second heartbeat. I checked every window lock, pulled the blinds, and set a small motion sensor light in the hallway. Then I poured another glass of wine and opened my laptop. If Ethan wanted to play intimidation, I could play control. I drafted an article, not for publication yet, just a personal record. The Perfect Stain, a chronicle of power, lies, and lawn maintenance. The opening line made me laugh. In neighborhoods where everyone smiles, the loudest secrets live behind the cleanest curtains. Halfway through the second paragraph, headlights flared across the window. I peeked through the curtain. Ethan's car. He got out slowly, looking more like a man unraveling than one plotting. I watched him walk up the path and ring the bell. I waited until the second ring before opening the door. Megan, he said, voice trembling somewhere between anger and exhaustion. His eyes were bloodshot, though I refused to feel sorry for them. Can we talk? Sure, I said. Outside. He frowned. It's freezing. I prefer distance, I replied, stepping onto the porch. He followed reluctantly. What do you want from me? He asked. I already have it, I said. You've embarrassed me in front of everyone. Your career survived other people's losses, I interrupted. It won't survive your own truth. He took a step closer. I didn't hurt you on purpose. That's what people say when they confuse selfishness for love. I met his eyes evenly. You liked being admired. You just didn't expect me to stop admiring. For a moment, I thought he might yell. Instead, he looked down, hands clenching and unclenching. Nicole's gone. She disappeared. She's blaming me for everything. Smart girl, I said. You should try it. You're proud of this? He demanded. You think you're the hero here? I tilted my head. No. Heroes forgive. I'm the narrator. He stared, speechless. I turned back toward the door. You should go, Ethan, before someone mistakes your car for courage. As I stepped inside, I heard him mutter something low and bitter, but I didn't catch it. I didn't need to. The sound of retreat was enough. The next morning, Diana texted, Town meeting at the club today. Big drama. You should come watch. Curiosity won. By noon, I was sitting quietly in the back of the club's event room, pretending to read a pamphlet. At the front, members of the board were arguing about recent conduct unbecoming of community representatives. Ethan sat near the end of the table, jaw tight, eyes avoiding mine. Every few minutes, someone made a subtle remark about standards or trust, and another person nodded gravely. It was less a meeting and more a polite execution by etiquette. When it ended, I stood, stretching, and caught Ethan's gaze for a split second. No words passed. He looked like a man who'd just realized reputation doesn't rebuild like spreadsheets. Outside, Diana joined me, beaming. You're a legend now, she said. Half the women in there want to buy you coffee and hear every detail. I'm not sure they could handle the whole story, I said. It lacks redemption arcs. That night, I drove to the lake again. Not for confrontation this time, but closure. The cabin looked the same, except for one broken light on the porch. I stood on the dock, watching the reflection of the moon tremble across the water. It wasn't peace I felt. It was clarity, the rare kind that comes when you realize you no longer care who sympathizes. My phone buzzed. A message from Mark. Your column pitch on suburban deceit. Still want that slot? Readers would eat it up. I typed back, absolutely. Working title, The Perfect Stain. Then I turned off my phone, tossed the last printed photo of Ethan and Nicole into the lake, and watched it drift. Behind me, the woods whispered, wind stirring branches like applause. Revenge, I decided, doesn't always burn. Sometimes it gleams. By Monday morning, the world had rearranged itself around the story I'd created. Ethan's firm released a statement full of words like values, integrity, and temporary leave. The local paper, my paper, ran a small piece on community figures facing personal challenges. No names, of course. None needed. The whole town knew exactly who the figures were. I sat at my desk, coffee in hand, reading between the lines. Every sentence felt like a faint echo of my own. Mark leaned against my doorframe. Funny, huh? How fast people crumble once their mask slips. Almost poetic, I said. You ever think about writing fiction? I smiled. Every day. He laughed and left me to it. I opened a new document titled The Perfect Stain, Chapter 1. But instead of typing, I stared out the window, watching the reflection of myself in the glass, calm, measured, capable. The reflection of someone who'd crossed a line and realized she liked the view from the other side. That afternoon, I received an email from Nicole. Her address was familiar. She'd used it once for a work event RSVP. You got what you wanted. He's ruined. I hope you're happy. I stared at the sentence for a long moment, then typed back, happiness is overrated. Accuracy isn't. Then I deleted the draft without sending it. She'd already read enough of me. Around 5, Diana called. "Ethan's moving out," she said breathlessly. "He told someone at the hardware store he's getting a place near the lake. Probably thinks he can start over." "Good for him," I said. "Megan?" She hesitated. "You really don't feel anything? Not even regret?" "I felt plenty," I said. "Just not regret." The phone line was quiet for a second. "You scare people. Only the ones who deserve it." That night, I took Bailey for a long walk. The streets were quiet, shadows stretching from the lampposts like polite secrets. A few houses still glowed with soft light, televisions flickering behind curtains. From one window, I heard laughter, bright, unguarded. I wondered when I'd stopped laughing like that. Maybe when Ethan started correcting how I laughed. Or maybe long before that, when I learned silence was safer than honesty. As we rounded the corner, I noticed a black sedan parked halfway down the street. Unfamiliar. Windows tinted too dark for comfort. It wasn't unusual to see guests or delivery cars, but something about the way it idled made my instincts stir. I walked slower, gripping Bailey's leash. The sedan pulled forward, eased past me, and turned the corner without stopping. Normal. Probably. Still, I memorized the license plate. Old habits. Back home, I wrote for hours, about the masks people wear, about how betrayal doesn't happen in a moment, but in inches, like a slow leak. Around midnight, I closed my laptop and realized the house was too still, the kind of quiet that hums in your ears. Then came the sound, soft, deliberate, a creak from the back porch. Bailey lifted his head, ears pricked. I froze, pulse steady but alert. Another creak. Then nothing. I walked to the kitchen, barefoot, silent. The motion light outside flicked on. A figure stood just beyond the glass door. Ethan. His expression unreadable in the glow. I slid the door open a few inches. "You should really stop showing up uninvited," I said. "Megan, listen." His voice was rough, tired. "Everything's gone. The firm, the clients, the house. They froze the accounts." "Then you'll finally learn to live without pretense," I said. "I came to say I'm sorry." "Too late." He stepped closer. "You can't hate me forever." "Hate is too personal," I said. "You don't get that much of me anymore." "I lost everything," he repeated, quieter now. "Not everything," I said. "You still have your reflection. That's the part you loved most anyway." He stared, something sharp flickering behind his eyes. For a moment, I thought he might reach for me, not to hurt, but to convince. I didn't move. Finally, he nodded, defeated. "You won't stop until there's nothing left of me, will you?" "There's always something left," I said. "That's the punishment." He looked down, then back up with a strange, resigned calm. "You know, you were right. You are the narrator. But you forgot something." "What's that?" "Stories end, and you don't get to control the last line." He turned and walked away into the dark. The motion light flicked off, swallowing him in blackness. I stood there, fingers resting on the cool glass, waiting for the sound of his car. None came, only the low, steady hum of the night. The next morning, his car was gone. By midweek, Ethan's name disappeared from the company website entirely. Nicole transferred to another firm out of state. The neighborhood's gossip supply finally began to run dry, and for the first time in months, I could walk past the grocery store bulletin board without hearing whispers behind me. But peace didn't feel like I'd imagined. It wasn't relief. It was emptiness shaped like triumph. Friday evening I drove to the lake. The same road, the same trees. But this time I didn't stop at the cabin. Instead, I parked near the overlook where the whole lake stretched beneath the hill, silver under the sinking sun. I rolled down the window and listened to the faint rustle of water against the shore. In the trunk sat a box of everything that was left. Photos, notes, the empty wine bottle from that night. evidence of a life that no longer fit. I carried it to the edge of the overlook, opened the lid, and one by one began letting things go. A receipt, a ring box, the last printed still from the video. Each item fluttered into the wind, disappearing before it hit the water below. When the box was empty, I whispered, "The story's over," and almost believed it. Then my phone vibrated in my pocket. Unknown number again. A text. "You forgot one thing. No signature." I stared at the screen, then at the horizon. The lake looked calm, unbothered. I exhaled slowly, pocketed the phone, and turned back toward the car. As I drove away, the wind picked up, carrying the faint sound of something behind me. Maybe branches shifting, maybe a car engine far off. I didn't check. Because the truth was, maybe Ethan was right. Stories do end. But sometimes, the stain they leave behind, that's the real masterpiece. The next few days blurred into something that looked like calm from the outside. Inside, it was noise. Quiet noise. The kind that hums under the skin when you know something isn't finished, but can't yet see the shape of what's left. I went through the motions. Work, coffee, dog walks, grocery runs. No one said anything to my face, though people smiled like I'd lost weight or gained purpose. They wanted to believe I'd moved on. I almost did too. Friday morning brought rain. A real one this time. Steady, clean, unhurried. The kind that smooths rough edges off the world. I was at my desk, typing the opening for my new column. Perfection is a rumor that spreads faster than truth. Then I saw the movement outside the window, a dark car stopping across the street. The same shape as before, the same tinted windows. Bailey barked once, sharp and low. I got up slowly, pulled the curtain back a fraction. The car idled. Then, as if satisfied, it drove off. No license plate visible this time. It could have been Ethan, or someone who looked like him, or no one at all. Still, the unease folded itself neatly in my chest and refused to leave. By noon, Diana called again. "They're saying Ethan left town," she said. "Something about taking a job out west. He didn't even tell the firm, just gone." "Maybe he learned how to disappear," I said. "Do you think he'll come back?" "People always come back," I said, "especially to the scene of their humiliation." "You sound like you're writing a movie," she said. "Something like that." That night, I went to the lake for the last time. Not because I expected him to be there, but because endings deserve witnesses. The rain had stopped, leaving the ground slick, the air thick with that clean scent of almost forgiveness. I parked by the dock and stepped out, shoes sinking slightly into the damp earth. The water stretched out flat, silent, holding the reflection of a sky that hadn't decided whether to brighten or fade. I walked to the end of the dock and stood there, breathing. The cabin was dark. The porch light, the one he'd broken, still hung there, tilted. Everything looked smaller than I remembered. Isn't that always the way? The places that once held power shrink once you stop giving them your fear. I took my phone out. For a long moment, I stared at the unsent messages, the evidence folder, the video files I'd kept, just in case. I selected them all and pressed delete. The screen flashed once, then went blank. No proof left, just memory. Then I heard it, the crunch of gravel. Slow, deliberate. My pulse didn't quicken this time. It just focused. The shape emerging from the tree line wasn't Ethan. It was a different car, smaller, unfamiliar. For a split second, I thought maybe it was a tourist, lost. Then the headlights cut out, and the door opened. Ethan stepped out. He looked thinner, paler, his suit wrinkled and damp. "You knew I'd come back," he said. "I counted on it," I answered. "You always need the last word." He gave a hollow laugh. "You ruined me, Megan." "No," I said quietly. "You did that the moment you underestimated me." He stepped closer. "I wanted to see if you'd feel anything. Guilt, maybe. Or satisfaction." I met his eyes. I feel finished. He nodded slowly, studying me. You've changed. I started telling the truth, I said. That tends to do it. For a moment, we stood in the rain-soaked silence, the air heavy with everything we'd already said and everything we no longer needed to. Then he looked past me toward the lake. It's funny, he said, voice almost soft. I used to think this place was an escape. Turns out it's a mirror. Careful, I said. You might not like what you see. He turned back to me. You got what you wanted. You can stop now. I already stopped, I said. You're just late to the ending. He stared for another beat, then shook his head. You'll regret it one day. Maybe not soon, but you'll remember what it felt like to be the one holding the match. Maybe, I said. But by then, the fire will be old news. He gave a small nod, almost like respect, then walked back to his car. No words left, no drama. Just quiet footsteps and the sound of tires on wet gravel. When his taillights disappeared down the road, I stayed a while longer, watching the ripples spread across the lake. The reflection of the cabin windows wavered, then steadied. Everything looked ordinary again. I thought about the woman I'd been, the one who laughed at his jokes, who folded herself to fit his version of calm. She was gone now, not vanished, just rewritten, like a draft improved in the margins. Back at home, I poured one last glass of wine and sat on the porch. Bailey curled at my feet. The rain started again, soft, forgiving. In the distance, thunder rolled over the hills, low and patient. Somewhere in town, people were still whispering about me. Let them. Stories need fuel. I raised my glass to the quiet street. To the perfect stain, I said. May it never wash out. And for the first time in months, I smiled. Not because I'd won, but because I finally understood what that meant.